tree of the week, the last one for this term probably, I think. We're next to the college's largest tree, without doubt, probably its oldest tree. This is a Cedar of Lebanon, Cedrus Lebanon, and it's native to Lebanon and Syria, and was introduced into Britain in about 1645. And cedars have a major status symbol. People with land and large houses tended to plant them. This is a very broad trunked tree. It's about as tall as it's going to get, so about 45 metres tall. Like all things that get older, it's broadening out somewhat. And here's its cone, its fruit on body, and that's been sit on upside down, so it's not opening in the normal way. It would normally flake from the top, but it's a very ephemeral cone, unlike the cones we looked at last week, and it often just flakes away in the tree rather than dropping to the ground. But it's interesting. We'll give you a sense of how the tree looks at the moment, but basically the branches are level and widespread, and it's a flat-topped tree, and it grows in the mountains in Lebanon and Syria, and parts of Turkey too. And in Turkey they actually plant, they have a planting program for these trees, rather interesting. This is the first of 3 cedars that we're going to look at in the college, because the college has all 3 species of cedar, and so far as I'm aware, that St Hilda's is the only college that has all 3 species, and they take up an enormous amount of room and dominate the landscape. But evergreen trees are very useful in the landscape at this time of year. Okay, we're in the hall garden now, where there are 2 cedar trees, and the one behind me is the younger one of the 2, and it's an Atlas cedar from Cedrus Atlantica, and it's from the Atlas Mountains, Algeria, Morocco, introduced in about 1845, so much later than the Lebanon cedar, which was introduced mid-17th century. It's a relatively recent introduction. And the interesting thing about this is it has ascending branches, and the Lebanon cedar has level branches. So it's distinctive when it's young, but as it matures, it does flatten out a bit and isn't quite so ascending in its branch form. But it's a lovely tree, and this particular one is a blue form, and gardeners, nurserymen have selected various types with cedars, and some have nice bluey grey glaucous needles. It's nice to have a tree of different habit, and the whole garden's big enough to take both trees. Okay, so we're at the second tree in the hall garden. This is Cedrus deodara, which is the Himalayan cedar tree, native to the western Himalayas, grows in the mountains, makes a very substantial tree, can easily get up to 45 to 50 metres tall. This one's fully mature here and is possibly getting on for 150, 170 years old. And the thing about Cedrus deodara, it has drupung branches. So it grows up with drupung branches and then eventually produces a flat top. So it's quite distinctive. So as opposed to the other two trees that we've looked at, you can easily tell them apart. And the great thing about having the three species in the garden at St Hilda's is you can compare and contrast. And the Hindus venerate the tree in the Himalayas, and it's also used to extract cedar wood oil, and it's used for construction purposes, but it's not a strong wood, and doesn't it's not used in heavy construction, but tends to be used for cladding and that kind of thing. Of course, it has a beautiful smell and it looks very attractive and it weathers down. With all the cedars that we've looked at, they have this very distinctive needle arrangement, these clusters of needles, which makes identifying a cedar very easy. Some conifers can be pretty tricky to identify and work out which is which, but cedars are very distinctive. So the tree to be enjoyed in the coming winter months, maybe frost covered, snow covered, or glistening with rain. Enjoy.